Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto anime episode reviews. This is going to be for episode 74 and 75. Both of them aired today, so we got a kind of two-parter here. Wasn't a special of sorts, like it really was just two episodes that happened to air today, rather than like, no, you have to watch these two episodes together. They're basically like 1 and 2 parters and they feel like a movie. This was definitely just two episodes that they, for scheduling reasons, decided to air next to each other. So there wasn't anything particularly significant about the fact that they aired two episodes, in that they were, for the most part, you know, linked in that Team 10 was of course involved, but nothing particularly amazing in that I didn't think either episode was particularly great. The first one was more about the fight between Boruto and Sarada and Team 10. And that was alright. I get people's frustration about the fact that, like, oh, Boruto and Sarada kind of lost their fight here. I get they were outnumbered and so on, but the criticism I'd more have is that it definitely felt like the plot has to get here, but they didn't even do a particularly good fight to get to that point. In that, I don't think this is meant to really mean all that much with regards to any sort of like the path to Boruto and Shikadai having another fight and really seeing where that goes. This just felt like, okay, the plot requires Team 10 to kind of get the victory, to like they're in control of if Boruto and Sarada can go anywhere, but then Boruto and Sarada managed to convince them to join them. That's where it needed to get to, and so the fighting just felt a little like, you know, basic, standard stuff. It was alright, but nothing particularly significant. Of course, you had all the characters being like, you know, we're friends, we don't really want to hurt each other, and that's why it wasn't overly intense, but because of that, it also didn't feel particularly great either. Moegi, similarly, you know, nice. Probably one of the best parts of the fight was just a little bit between Moegi and Sarada getting across, obviously, the skill levels of a Jonin versus, I suppose, someone with a very powerful skill who is still in training. And then her little scuffle against Suigetsu was interesting in that, one, she didn't use her wood power that she apparently has. I'm really not sure if that was meant to be just a mistake or if she actually has it, or else they're just saving it for some sort of a big moment. She at least used water style, which you have to use it because I think it's water and earth together, I think, is a wood style as a Kekkei Genkai, but we'll see where we go with that. And then the Suigetsu thing was interesting in that he basically implied that Orochimaru sent him out there to distract Moegi to, I suppose, give Boruto and Sarada some more help. Just getting across that, like, okay, he didn't seem to overly show much parental concern for Mitsuki previously, but here he is just kind of subtly, secretly helping his friends, his son's friends along the way. So that was a nice little thing to see, to obviously give Boruto and Sarada that chance to sort of convince Shikadai primarily to side with them, which, you know, eventually did. And it all came down to the fact that, you know, they're all friends, they're going to help them on this mission, and that's what it's about. So in the grand scheme of things, that first episode wasn't like anything overly significant. In the background, you kind of tried to emphasize the fact of like Shikadai making the decisions, and like Shikamaru and Tamari having a bit of a discussion about like, was it right to send basically their friends out after them, and would they be able to accomplish the mission? And Shikamaru being kind of, you know, fairly confident that he would get it done, but kind of worried that he'd maybe make this kind of Knights kind of rush forward, and he ended up doing that. But you know, him going along with his friend, Shikadai siding with Boruto, made sense, I think, overall. As for the second episode, I was actually fairly excited for this, to finally go to Ryuguchi Cave and deal with the whole Snake Sage thing. Immediately, I suppose the obvious thing in the aftermath of this is that, like, I thought the main Snake Sage was they showed it before, like they showed a clip of it in like the anime, and it was actually just a big snake, and this guy didn't really seem like that. Now, obviously what they're showing here is kind of like actual snake sages, human snake sages here, rather than necessarily the like talking animals who are the I suppose masters of the technique. So I'm not really sure what to make of the guy they're calling the White Snake Sage. Really, I assume there's some reveal that still has to come out with all of this, but it definitely felt a little fillery with regards to just like, here's this actually really interesting lore thing with Naruto and we've never actually got before. Like, of course, we know all about the Toad Sages and so on, all that sort of stuff, Mount Miyamoku. And then we've just kind of been hinted at about like the idea of becoming like a slug sage, like Tsunade and kind of Sakura, and then little bits and pieces about the snake sage stuff. So we're finally delving into that a bit. It just felt a little fillery just because it was Boruto and the standard, testing the character, and usually people come for greedy reasons and if they fail we kill them. But you're passing these tests, but you don't actually want the power, and it just showing the different side of it. Because it is interesting in that, like, we often see the snake stuff as being kind of like more villainous type thing, and trying to make it more of a, in a way, honorable thing for the snake sages kind of feels a little weird. But you get what they were going for there. It's putting Boruto through a lot to show the lengths to which he's willing to go through to meet Mitsuki again, and I suppose try to be a better friend to him, listen to him more, learn about him, and that's the way to, I suppose, for Boruto, kind of get him through this situation here of he went through so much to get here, and that sort of helps to fix maybe not listening to him from before. So that was stuff that they needed to do. What they actually did, I thought was all right. Just the little tests here and there. Again, like I don't think there's too much significance to it. Just like testing his heart and how if he'd be able to stand up to it, even if his friends were like criticizing the decisions he was making, if he would give up easy or not with the kind of rock puzzle thing, and so on. It was, all right, but it was ultimately just felt like holding off to get to the important scene, which was actually just meeting with the snake sage, who initially is just kind of like, oh, all I can do is teach you sage jutsu, but you don't want that. I can't actually do anything for you. But eventually agrees that, like, if you do this thing for me, get this reverse snake scale thing from this snake in there that's causing me trouble, then I'll help you interpret what this snake is saying. It was somewhat interesting that all of the kind of different snake sages, the three girls plus the actual sage, were very much kind of like they're testing everyone who comes into their kind of area. And while ultimately they're sort of obviously morally grey in that they test people and if they're wrong they eat them and kill them, and that's not very good, there's still this sense of like there's an honor to them in that even if when someone passes the test, they will not go ahead with it. They're not like that sort of like villainous. That's at least, somewhat interesting. But I don't think it was the best portrayal of what I felt should have been more of a, like, really exploring what it is to be a snake sage and Ryuguchi Cave and the significance of that. Like they did with the Toad Sage and like Naruto becoming a sage. That all felt like this really in-depth lore that was really well done, and the fact that they set up like two other ways to be a sage with the slugs and then snakes. This was alright. I'm hoping that once we get through the next episode, which actually looks like it could have some interesting scenes in it. It looks like Sarada's going to meet Aoba, who is Sasuke's summoning snake, which he hasn't used in a while. I don't think adult Sasuke has used him. So that actually is going to be pretty interesting to see if Aoba knows her or if she potentially knows him, and just what the conversation is about. And obviously with these characters still in training, like when are they going to get to the point where they're using summoning animals, and in what way does it go? Because like, the setup as it is now would seem that, like, Mitsuki's the snake guy, so he's the one who's going to summon the snake, which would leave Boruto to do the toad and Sarada to do the slug. But if, like, Sarada's going down more of a Naruto path, might they want to change it up and she gets maybe the toad powers and then Boruto does the slug stuff? I'm not really sure. I think they may just go down the other way of just Naruto sticks with the toads. But we have to wait and see on that for sure. I don't really even know if they'll commit to doing that just to make it a little bit different. But yeah, I think that's most of what I want to talk about here with this one. I'll definitely admit I was a little disappointed that, like, we got 2 full episodes, but it felt like it really slowed down what was a arc that was building really, really well. Now, I think part of that is just because ultimately we're trying to explore Mitsuki as a character, and it's an arc that basically hasn't featured Mitsuki all that much. Like, I get you want to build Boruto and, like, trying to be a better friend, but that only works if you explore why Mitsuki's doing this well in the first place. So if we don't get the good answers, all of this Boruto development won't necessarily be worth it. So, you know, I hope they deliver on the interpretation of what this snake actually is saying is good. And then I do hope that, like, we leave Ryuguchi Cave with some additional knowledge about the nature of what it is to be a snake sage and how that stuff works. Like, even if it's just some references to, like, them saying, like, oh, your father's a toad sage, we don't like that, or something like along those lines. And the preview also showed Sakura a little bit that, like, she's going to be alerted to the fact that, like, her daughter is missing or something like that. So I don't know if they're really placing too much significance on that, in that, like, are we going to see Katsuyu, isn't it? Who's the Tsunade and Sakura summoning one, the kind of healing slug. I don't know if that's the significance there, or if it's just that, like, Sarada is going to meet the summoning snake of her father, and it'll just reference the family kind of again. We'll have to wait and see on that, of course. But yeah, a bit disappointed. There are still some good parts to the episodes for sure. But at this point, I'm just hoping they deliver on how they kind of bring it to a close. And that is obviously the scenes of the reasoning behind what Mitsuki does. That's going to be a lot of the focus. Once Mitsuki comes back into play in a bigger way, developing those scenes well enough. What we got here was fine, but, you know, a bit disappointing because, you know, when it's revealed that you're going to get 2 episodes in one day, you get a little hyped. It unfortunately was just 2 kind of middle-of-the-road episodes. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on both of these episodes and what I had to say about them. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.